Good evening to everybody. Hello and welcome. It's about 10 minutes after 6. And, excuse me 1 second. I'm sorry. It's 10 minutes after 6. And we're doing Maimer. This is the second part of the Maimer Mashcheini, which we started last night. Last night I did a lot of talking and very little reading. I'm hoping to do a more balanced class today. Some reading and some talking, as it were. Just in a sentence, I'm going to repeat what we discussed yesterday. It's a classic idea in Hasidus, based on the pasuk, Mashcheini acharecha narutza, Havayani hamelech hadorav, Nagilov nismechabach, which is a pasuk in the very beginning of Shir Hashirim, that Mashcheini goes on Pesach, acharecha narutza goes on Sfiras HaEmer, Havayani hamelech hadorav goes on Matan Torah, and Nagilov nismechabach goes on a oneness between Yidden and HaKadosh Baruch. And of course, the observations that are made is that Mashcheini is in Lashon Yochid, and Acharecha Narutza is Lashon Rabim. So it's explained that Pesach is Mashcheini. Hashem is taking us out of Mitzrayim. And because of the condition, the spiritual condition of the Jewish people, Mashcheini goes only on the Neshama. The animal soul is not partnering in the Mashcheini. But then comes Sfiras HaOmer, and Sfiras HaOmer is Acharecha Narutza, the godly and the animal souls both run after HaKadosh Baruch. So in the Maimah before this one, this was explained as birur of the Nefesh Elokis being mislabish and the Nefesh HaBahamis to be invaded the Nefesh HaBahamis. It was explained rather at length, rather extensively, that because the godly soul affects a correction of the animal soul, it's considered as if the human being has actually corrected his godly soul as well, and therefore both of them are considered his. And when it comes Shavuos, when the Eibishter gives us a Torah on Shavuos, we're not just passive recipients, we're partners because we readied ourselves to the avodah of Birur HaMidas. That's basically the idea. This Maimer is the same theme, but at a higher level. We're still discussing Mashcheini, Acharecha Narutza, and Havayani Melech Hadorav. But the presumption is that we're talking about the Madrega of Yechida, as you're going to see today. Mashcheini, when the Eibishter takes Yidden out of Mitzrayim on Pesach, he touches and reveals the Yechidah Shebenefesh, the pin to the Yid. Acharecha Narutza means that both the Nefesh Elokis and the Nefesh HaBahamis are in pursuit, chase after HaKadosh Baruch. So in this Maimer, since Mashcheini goes on the Nefesh, goes on Yechidah, so Acharecha Narutza also goes on Yechidah. And in this Maimer, you can have a rather unusual illusion, you don't have it often in Hasidus, that there's something called Mekfidim Yechidasi, the Yechidah of the Nefesh HaBahamis, which is very, very hard to understand, because arguably, most Maimar Chassidus, they bring a Gemara, Bua de Bua Leslu, or Bebua de Bebua Leslu, that Klippa doesn't have a Yechidah, it only has Chaya. And in so many Maimarim, in the vast majority of Maimarim, at least the ones that I've learned, we speak about there being a Nefesh against a Nefesh, a Ruach against a Ruach, a Chaya, a Neshama against a Neshama. Chaya and Chaya is also not so directly interfacing, but there is no Liyuma Zev Yechidah. In this Maimer, there's a phenomenon called Mekfidim Yechidasi, the Yechid of Klippa. So let me start with an introduction. Okay, let me, so to speak, set the stage and explain to you the problem. I'm not sure what the solution is, but I'll explain to you what the problem is. There's the conscious levels of the neshama and there's the subconscious levels of the neshama. They're called pnimi and makifim. The conscious levels of the neshama are basically nefesh, ruach, and neshama. The subconscious levels of the neshama are basically chaya and yechida. What's the difference between chaya and yechida? If they're subconscious, why are the two levels of the subconscious? And the answer is one is above reason and the other is the essence. It's connected to the very essence. In other words, chaya is a power of the neshama beyond the mind, Yechida is not a greater power, it's the way the neshama is one with Hashem. So when you learn the Maimonim, right, like for example, Vata Tetzaveh, the classic source of this idea. Vata Tetzaveh. There's two levels. There's a level called Mazel, and there's a level called Etzem, which is basically Chaya and Yechida. What's the difference? The Mazel, which is the level of the Neshama, which is subconscious, has a Mesiras Nefesh, has a will for HaKadosh Baruch Hu above reason, because Mazle Chazi, the subconscious, sees. The Etzem HaNeshama has an infinite connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because it's one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So there's a huge difference between Chaya and Yechida. Chaya is a level of the Neshama that's beyond reason, that has a relationship with the Eibishter. Yechida is a level of the Neshama that's beyond reason, but not because it has a super rational relationship with the Eibishter, but because it's a part of the Eibishter. And in the language of the Tanya, when you talk about Yechida, it's not so much what it wants, but what it's not able to do. It's not able to separate itself from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The expression, which is very famous, it comes back originally to the Alter Rebbe. It's brought in Hayem Yem. A Yid nicht, der will nicht, der kann werden abgerissen von Göttlichkeit. Pardon me. A Jew neither wishes to nor is capable of becoming separate from Elokus, because a Yid and Elokus are one. That's the Madrega of Yechida. And of course, in the V'yata Tetzaveh, there's another dimension that Gili Elokus Negel Etzem. It's a usage that God should be revealed in the whole world touches the very essence of a Jew, and when that doesn't happen, is an Engan Sintete, so Kosas Lamoy. So Yechida is very different than Chaya. Chaya is a level of the Neshama. Chaya is an awareness of the Neshama. Chaya is a level of the Neshama that has a relationship with the Eibishter. So it says in Chassidus that there's a Zelium Azeh, just like Nefesh is against Nefesh, Nefesh Elokis Nefesh, Nefesh Abamis Nefesh, Ruach against Ruach, Neshama against Neshama. Chaya can also be against Chaya. Although it's not the same. I'll tell you why it's not the same. Because Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama have a seat in the body. Nefesh sits in the kavod, in the liver, or the kloyes. The Ruach is in the heart, in the lungs. And the Neshama is in the mind, or the brain. We have only one liver, and only one heart, and only one brain. So the Nefesh Elokis and Nefesh Abamis are competing for the same space. So they fight, they push each other out. There's no room for both of them at the same time. Chaya doesn't have a seat in the Neshama. Which part of the Neshama is? Of the Guf. It doesn't have a seat. So Chaya doesn't, the Chaya of Kedusha does not confront Chaya of Klipa the same way the Neshama of Kedusha confronts the Neshama of Klipa, and the Ruach of Kedusha confronts the Ruach of Klipa, and the Nefesh of Kedusha confronts the Nefesh of Kedusha of Klipa, because there's no seat. So Chaya and Chaya, the Chaya of Kedusha, the Chaya Liyuma, they meet in a less aggressive or direct way. They don't fight head on. They simply take over the space of. They take over the body. The other one doesn't have space. They don't fight with each other. They simply take over each other's space. And it's different. It's different. On the one hand, Chaya is stronger than the lower faculties. On the other hand, the confrontation is not as direct. But classic Maimonim will tell you there's no Yechid and Klipa. Finished. Why? Because there can't be a Yechid and Klipa. Yechid al-Yachtach. There's only one God. There's no two gods. Yechid al-Yachtach means the level of Yechid is one with the Creator. The Creator created Klipa as well. There's no Yechid of Klipa. There's no oneness with Hashem to fight against Hashem. Yet here we have a Maimed that speaks clearly of a Yechid of Klipa. Mekfidim Yechidas. Now, I don't know how to explain it. And I'm dafka starting the class with this because I want to make it very clear up front. This is a dilemma. This is an issue. And by the way, I mentioned yesterday, I'll repeat it again today. One of the Maimonim that we learned in the last 12 months was the Maimed of Pada V'Shalom for Tes Kislev, Tovshin Lamed Tes, to Mugedika Maimed, Melukah Chayla Gimel. It came out in Tovshin Lamed Tes. And one of the ideas that's discussed in this Maimed is the difference between Chaya and Yechida. And the ideas that are discussed in that Maimed conform to what I just said. This Maimed is going to say something different. That there's a Yechid of Klipa. How do you reconcile the classic idea that there is no Yechid of Klipa with what's written in our Maimed? So I have two different thoughts, and that's what this is, two thoughts. The Maimed doesn't say. There's two different thoughts. The first thought is that when it speaks in the Maimed, Mekfidim Yechidasi, it really means Chaya. In other words, the level of nefesh in the Yumazeh, which is above seichel, is dedicated to its cause, which is an animal cause, higher than reason, but it's not truly Yechida. It's not connected to the Eibishter. It's just a very powerful force, if you will. So one way of resolving the question of how there could be Mikfiri Mechidase, when the Maimonim say there's no Yechida in Klippa, is to say that it doesn't mean Yechida. The other possibility is that it's Chutzpah. It's like a Molek. Or like you have in some Maimonim, this Yenis. The Yechida of Klippa has no reality, has no life. Doesn't exist at all, except Chutzpah. And as you've studied the Maimorim of Amalek, you know Amalek has no Metzias Reishis Goyim Amalek V'Charisi Adi Yovid. Amalek has no reality, but because he's Chutzpah has no containment. And that may be the Pshat, that a person doesn't need Chayas to be Chutzpahdik. In other words, there's no life of Yechida in Klippa, there's just Chutzpah. And when Chutzpah is altogether irrational, it has the Teikef of Yechida, not because of its connection, but because of its Chutzpah. So those are two different ways of resolving the question of how there could be Yechida and Klippa, which is going to be at the heart of this Maimed. A, it doesn't mean Yechida, it means Chaya. And B, it's Poshet Chutzpah. But be that as it may, we're now going to be learning a Maimed that's going to be discussing this. Pesach, Hashem arouses the Yechida of the Neshama, of the Nefesh Elokis, in a unilateral way that's called Mashcheini Lashon Yochid. Sfiras HaOmer, we arouse both the Yechid of Nefesh Elokis and the Yechid of Nefesh HaBahamis in a process that's called Acharecha Norutz. And the question of the Maimon is going to be, if a person reveals the Yechid of his Nefesh Elokis, why does he have to bother with the Yechid of the Nefesh HaBahamis? In the last Maimon, they were the same pasuk, Mashcheini Acharecha Norutz, Haviyanem Melech Hadorov, Mogol V'Nisbech HaBach, but you're speaking on the conscious levels of the neshama, on the neran, the lower levels of the neshama. In as much as you're speaking on the lower levels of the neshama, the nefesh elokis must conquer the nefesh habahamis because they're in the same space and they're in direct conflict. But if you're talking about yechida and yechida, when you have the revelation of the yechida of nefesh elokis, there seems to be no need to be mavada the yechida of nefesh habahamis. It can't take up the same space. So the Maimon's question is going to be, if we're going to explain this pasuk Mashcheini twice, first of all, I was explaining the previous Maimon, Mashcheini on the level of Naran, where you understand why you have Acharecha Loshen Rabbim Narutza, Nefesh Elokis has been Mavad the Nefesh HaBahamis. But you're also going to explain Mashcheini a second time that it goes on the Yechida. Why on the level of the Yechida is there also a need for Acharecha Narutza that the Nefesh HaBahamis Yechida should also run to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Why is it not enough that the Yechida should be Nefesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And you know what? Forgive me for speaking this way. It's a Gavaldika Kasha. It's a good Kasha. Because the Yechida of the Nefesh Elokis is infinitely strong. And the Yechida of the Nefesh Elokis does not need motivation and tests and challenges. The Yechida of Gedusha is one with the Eibush, as Meister Nefesh, the Eibush without any constraints and limitations. L'kan D'Shem Shamayim. And therefore it's a legitimate question why you have to have Yechida of the Nefesh HaBahamis. That's going to be the discussion in the next two classes. Okay? Now we start. V'yashloima, page 15, number 3. And again, the PDF was put up yesterday, and I would imagine the Chama put it up today again. I just want to say that I saw a younger man ask on Facebook, how can you communicate with me? Rabbi say, some of the classes I give, I'm giving to my Talmidim. That means the yeshiva or the girls. And not all of them, but some of those classes I put up online. If I'm teaching my Talmidim or my Talmidois, that's my focus. I know I'd let you listen, but that's it. I'm not fielding your questions. Some of these classes are l'chatchila given for inside Hasidus.org, and this is one of those. But because of the new program that we have, we're featured live on Facebook, we're featured live on YouTube, and we're featured live on our own site inside Hasidus.org. So I don't see questions. So it's called Messenger apparently. If you will leave a question, the best thing is to try and find a way to get hold of my phone number. The younger man who asked the question the last hour, I'd like to have the opportunity to exchange with you. If you reach out to Messenger, somehow, I don't know all the shtalshos, how these things work, we should be able to be in touch through voice note. To type, I don't have time, but to voice note back and forth may be a possibility. So I'm just saying this because I noticed that somebody asked, and I'm busy, Baruch Hashem, which is very important and very good, but I would love to be able to answer, at least to engage in some kind of a discussion. We're now going to explain everything we learned in the previous Maimer about Mashcheini. Then the previous Maimer was on the levels of the Neshama called Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, the conscious levels of the Neshama, the levels of the Neshama which are Beslapshut to the Nefesh Abamis. Now we're going to learn them on the levels which are Yechidim. We discussed that when the Eibush took Yidner Mitzrayim, there was a great revelation. Shapol b'Nefesh Elokis that affected only the Nefesh Elokis, because that's the difference between Yitzias Mitzrayim and Sfiras Ha'omer. Yitzias Mitzrayim affects only Nefesh Elokis, and Sfiras Ha'omer affects both. Says the Rebbe Paul b'Pnimius and Nefesh Elokis. But Hashem reveals Himself at the time of the Exodus, which is a whole discussion unto itself. The of Niglalayim, He touches the inner Jew. That means the Yechidah. Says the Rebbe V'Oras, that's the human will, and of course the meaning of the word will is the power which is above reason. According to Hasidus, the mashal for Ein Sof is will. The willpower of a person is infinite. And the Rebbe explains that depends on the kind of will. The Hine. Yesh beis bechinas ratzon, there's two types of will. Ratzon sheyesh beitam, but ratzon she'ein beitam. A reasonable will and a super reasonable will. A reasonable will is really reason. I reason something, I thought about something, I decided something is good, and then I want it. That want is defined by the reason, which makes it a finite will. And then there's a will that comes from the very, very essence. Like, for example, the will that a person has to live is not a rational will, it's not a logical will, it's an absolute will. It's a will of the very, very essence. And it never passed through the brain in the first place. It's a very different types of will. And he explains, it says in the Medrash, Chamisha Shemis Nikra, the Neshama has 5 names: Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. So first of all, it says in some Medrashim the Seder Yechida Chaya. The Sag brings the Seder Yechida Chaya, but apparently it's Medrashas Chalukas, and the Seder that the Rebbeim bring is Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. And of course the Rebbe is Medayek, and a lot of the Rebbeim are Medayek that Chamisha Shemis Nikra, the Neshama has 5 names. So the Neshama itself is above even the highest name. The highest name is Yechida, and the Neshama has a level which is called Yachid, which is even higher than Yechida. The person has a will. Based on reason, it comes to the lowest level of the Neshama called Neshama, the third level. Shubachinas Bina, which is the concept of understanding, which is also of Nishmas Shadei Tavina, that from Bina comes understanding and Neshama. Nishmas Shadei Tavina. Perhaps even a reasonable will is connected to Chaya, which is the madrega of Chachma Shubachinas, the Chachma, which calls for Chachma Techaya Bale. And there's a link between Chachma and the word Chaya. And even though Shilamai law may have been, when a person knows something intuitively, when a person knows something at the level of Chachma, he doesn't know it thoroughly, he doesn't understand it comprehensively, it's already a source for understanding. Mishikosov Techaya Bale gives life to its host, and the host is Bina. So the Rebbe argues, Bina is certainly rational and limited, and Chochmah has a relationship with rationale and reason. So when I want something because I understand it, or even because I intuited it on a level of Chochmah, that will is going to be a rational will, and therefore a complex and limited will, as you're going to see soon. It says the Rebbe, when a person has a will that's completely super rational, is mitzad bechinas yechidus, on the level of yechida. Which is the will which comes from the very essence of the neshama, which comes from the level of yechida. In some Maimonides there's an expression, and this expression I'm not sure it applies here, but I'll use it anyway. When the neshama is engaged in a will that's beyond reason, he's not being stubborn. It's not akshonis, it's not stuckness, it's absoluteness. The neshama wants something, and nothing in the world is going to change that want. Nothing in the world is going to compromise that want. Nothing in the world is going to pacify that want other than the satisfaction of the will itself, because it's higher than reason. And it's not akshan, it's not just stubborn. It's etzem, it's emes. The etzem of a person, which is one with the etzem of the Eibishter, knows what it wants, because this is the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's not ikshus. And the emes is even in Yonah that have no tam, and so on, as we'll see perhaps a little bit more in the Maimah later on. Says the Rebbe, Lefi shehi mekabeles miyachid. The madrega of Yechid is in touch with the level called Yachid. And Yachid is the 6th, right? Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai, Yechid are 5 names. Chamir, Shemes, Niklu, Law. What's the Etzem and Neshama Yachad? Yachad is masculine for Yechida, and it goes how the Mamish is Tikei B'Shter Mamish. Sheratzen Zeh, when a person has such a will, who's Poshut, Huratz and Poshut, it's a plain will. She'ein Murkav, it's not complicated. B'Shum Tam, with any reason. So there's two types of Ratzin. A reasonable will, which is not really called will, it's called reason. And an absolute will, and that's the true concept of reason. Says Rabbi Paltiel, who the difference between a reasonable will and an absolute will is the following. Sharot and shesh beitam, when you want something based on reason, hu bahagabala, kefi, ev, and atam v'aseichel is limited according to one's reason and understanding. In other words, the kol masha seichel b'eimek yesed, if the intellect which is supporting this will is deeper, in that will is going to be more resolute, stronger. And if the idea that motivates this will is not as sophisticated, it's not as deep, so the will which comes from it is not going to be so intense. Because when intellect motivates will, the will reflects the intellect. If the intellect has greater depth, so does the will. If the intellect has less depth, so does the will. Moreover, when one's mind changes, one's understanding changes, it can change the will as well. To the extent the will could totally dissipate. Meaning to say, when I want something for a reason, when I lose the reason, I lose the will. Or something I could lose the reason, and I want the opposite of the will. Finally, moreover, one of the trademarks of a finite rational will is that there's many of them. People don't want one thing, they want many things. The specifics and the form of the ratzon. Since this will is based on reason, it's subdivided, it's complicated and complex like reason itself. So he said basically 5 things, right? When I want something because of my mind, it's limited. Its integrity and its resoluteness depends on the integrity of the idea which motivates it. When my mind changes, the will changes. If I lose interest, the will can be dissipated completely. And the will is complex, has many aspects. Continues, the Rabbi concludes this paragraph, Mashcheini. On the other hand, when a person has a will from the Medrega of Yechida, says the Rabbi, it's incredibly strong and resolute. Pashut, it's a simple will. There's no subdivision of parts. And you have to say all the 5 points that we said before backwards. When the mind changes, the will doesn't change. Whether the mind is deeper or a challenger, the will doesn't change. Because the will that's l'mayla min ha-seichel has nothing to do with seichel at all. So there's a reasonable will, since the will is based on reason, it's actually reason. And there's an absolute will, which is not based on reason, and it's absolute. Okay, I'm going to apologize for a second. I'm coming right back. I'm leaving the machine running. I'm coming back in a minute. I apologize for going away, but I'm literally falling asleep. L'chaim. V'hinei. Here comes the anomaly of this maimer. So far, the way the Rebbe defined Yechida is by saying that it's Ratzon B'li Tam, a will without a reason. And it's even a will without a chochma, without the intuition of a reason. What's sometimes called Tam Komas, no reason at all. But there's another factor to Yechida, right, which he mentions. And I talked about it in my introduction, and it's going to come up later in the Maimer. And that is that Yechida is connected to Atmos Amhus. Pardon me, which is the primary reason it's difficult to understand what we're about to learn. That there's Zel Umazeh even in Yechida. V'hinei. Even the level of the Nefesh Elokis, which is called Yechida, Yesh Dugmos, Nefesh Abahamis, there is an equal and opposite in the animal soul. Even though in Som and in Memorim it says different. That Yechida Leyachtach and Bua the Bua Leslahu and so forth. And this Maimah we're saying differently. And Bepashas we're going to say, if as a lashon that's sometimes used, Medrashas Chalukis, it's different shit, it's different Memorim, different approaches. Now perhaps as I gave you two suggested explanations for how both could be true, that there is no Yechida in Klipa, and our Maimah says that there is. But Bepashtas, this Maimah is different than the other Maimah. That we ask that the Eibush should protect our Yechida from the Kfirim Yechidasi, from the Yechida of Kfirim, Yechida of Klipa. Kivan Nefesh Abahamis, because the animal soul Yechel Lahailim Gam can hide also Al Bechinas Yechidish B'Nefesh Elokis over the Yechida, the divine soul. The Fisha Gam B'Nefesh Abahamis, because also in the animal soul Yesh Dugmas Bechinas Yechida. There's something like Yechida, and I want to make a point. The lashon that the Rebbe uses Nefesh Abahamis Yechel Lahailim Gam, and I'll tell you why. When you speak about nefesh, you wouldn't say that nefesh abahamis' nefesh can cover, can hide nefesh lakis' nefesh. You could say it could push him out. When you speak about the ruach, you wouldn't say that the ruach of nefesh abahamis can hide the ruach of nefesh lakis. It can take over the space of nefesh lakis. The same is true in neshama, because since nefesh, ruach and neshama have a seat in the goof, so the seat can be occupied only by one sitter. So they fight head on. Even in the madrega of chay. And certainly the Madrega of Yechida, since there's no place in the body to represent them, you cannot speak of a fight. You can simply speak of displacement. When the Yechida, if one is strong, the Yechida, the other is weak. But they never meet, they never collide and fight. When you arouse, when you inspire one of the Chaya, the other Chaya is Nelam. When you arouse and you inspire one of the Yechida, the other Yechida is Nelam. But there's no direct confrontation. That's the reason for this chosen, the choice of words. Or Kamaish on the Rayim, he brings a Rayim. Posh it praktish. Shagam ben nefesh abahamis yeshirats and takif. The animal soul also seems to have very determined will, very absolute will, resolute will. She'enei madud umugbul b'medidas v'agbal v'seichel. That's not measured and limited according to the measures and limitations of the seichel. Now, I'm going to go out of the limb and permit myself to interpret. What am I going to say in interpretation? That this is derech ikshus. Right? By the Nefesh Elokis, it says, Ein zeh derech ikshus chas v'shalom. It's not stam stubbornness. There's a tam komas. I mean, the way the sugi of Ein zeh derech ikshus chas v'shalom goes in the madrega of yesh tam komas l'ratzon. But even in the madrega of ein tam komas l'ratzon, the real yechida, in the Nefesh Elokis, you're not going to call it stubbornness. You're going to call it truth. This is my answer. In the Nefesh Abamis, it's pashat akshan. Have you met stubborn people? I've met stubborn people. It's a phenomenal thing. The stubbornness is so preeminent, so strong, that they'll destroy themselves to preserve their stubbornness. It's completely irrational. And the Rebbe says this is not limited to Nefesh Elokis. The Behema has such a stubbornness. And the stubbornness of the Nefesh Abahamis, which has to act out with a will, which to a degree which is self-destructive and super rational and irrational and so forth and so on, makes it equal and opposite even of the Yechid. That the animal soul also is in a position to have such strong wills that it's far beyond what reason would dictate. Moreover, not only can the will be stronger than the mind, it can be opposite to the mind. The one's intelligence, the simple rational mind, who masig, who mavin, she'ein tzarech lid, reaches an understanding. This is not the kind of thing you should want. It's self-destructive or destructive. Nevertheless, wills for it, because it's a will which is beyond reason. It's a will which is beyond reason. So we're not saying why it's beyond reason. We're not saying what motivates us beyond reason. We're simply stating a fact that in the Nefesh HaBahamis there can be wants that don't make any sense. And again, here we're going to use the word stubbornness. So wait. So the Rebbe makes an assertion in the grand total of 7 lines that there's a zel yom azav yechid. Yechid of Nefesh HaLekis has a takeoff aratzon for the Eibishter, which is lamal mitavadas legamre. The Yechid of Nefesh HaBahamis has a takeoff aratzon for yonim behemiyim, which is lamal mitavadas or lamata mitavadas legamre, and they're considered equal and opposite. Now, again, the first difference between the two is that the Yechid of Kedusha is connected to Yachid, and you cannot say that about the Yechid of Klipa. But now comes the second difference. There's another difference between the Yechid of the Nefesh HaLekis and the Yechid of Nefesh HaBahamis, which is the following. This is an Eidela one. It's a Gishmaka one. Take it for us the Nefesh HaBahamis Nikr B'Shem Kfirim. When you speak about the stubbornness, the will, the absolute will higher than reason that the animal possesses, we call it Kfirim. What is the denotation? What's the diuk of Kfirim? Loshen Rabim. It's plural. In other words, many wants. As opposed to the will of the Nefesh HaLekis, which is called Yechida, which is singular. The reason is there's a big difference. The power of will of the divine soul, this power of will of the animal soul, because as we're going to explain momentarily. And momentarily means in Pei Gimel, the next 2 paragraphs. And what are we going to explain? That for a will to be absolutely infinite, it has to be singular, the only will. And the minute the person has more than one will, they steal from each other. So again, let's repeat. The Rebbe is making an assertion that there's Mekfinim Echidasi, just like there's a Yechid and Kedusha, the Yechid and the Umazeh. But we know 2 differences between them. Number 1, the Yechid of Nefesh HaLekis is connected to something higher than Yechid, namely Yachid. You can't say the same about the Nefesh HaBahamis. And number 2, the Yechid of Nefesh HaBahamis has many wills. And the Yechid Nefesh HaLekis has one will. Now I just want to say to you that the Maimon and Samachov, I think it's Vikach Kerech, but it's not neighborhood. Where the Rebbe Rashab talks about the difference between Chaya and Yechid. Not Nefesh HaLekis and Nefesh HaBahamis, but Chaya and Yechid. And one of the things he says is that the Madreg of the Neshama that's called Chaya has Taryag Ritzenis. 613 different desires. 613 wants to 613 mitzvahs. Yechid has one want, to serve Hashem. Now, of course, if it wants to serve Hashem, it wants to do the 613 mitzvahs, but it's not 613 wants. On the Lashna Gemara, based on the Mishnah, it's Kabbalah Seil Malchus Shamayim versus Kabbalah Seil Mitzvahs. If a person accepts the yoke of mitzvahs, every mitzvah is a different yoke. If a person accepts the yoke of God, even though accepting the yoke of God means accepting the yoke of mitzvahs, but it's one yoke. And that's how the Rebbe is going to explain the difference between Yechid of Gedusha and Yechid of Yuma. The Yechid of Gedusha has one want. Yechid of Umazah has multiple wants. So it's taka higher than reason, and it's very, very stubborn. And it can quiet, it can be milim, even the Yechid of the Nefesh HaLekis. But it's not as absolute and as strong because of the 2 reasons we just listed. Now to learn it inside. It's very straightforward, you should know. Dehine. Excuse me. Haratz and Sheben Nefesh HaLekis Mitzad Bechinas Yechida. The way the neshama on the level of Yechida wants God. The notion of Yechida is it receives from Yachid, which is essentially the Eibishter, and is one with it. That's the source of its strength. The Yechid is strong not because he's mighty, but because he's attached to the Almighty. The key when whereas the will on the level of Yechida is Miyuchadis Im Ha'atzmos is one with the Eibishter himself. Nobody can tell the Eibishter what to do and what to affect. In other words, the meaning of these words are Hashem doesn't have to make sense to us. What Hashem does doesn't have to be rational understood by us. And therefore there's no limit to the choices that the Eibishter can make. The will which comes from Atzmos that miyemele matase is betekev God with an absolute hardness. Is vikuvim that nothing can be an obstacle and nothing can hold it back. In as much as Yechida's want is not just based on the power of its want, but on the fact that it's connected to Atzmos. How they move and it's understood. All the wills of the divine soul are in only one thing. So you've got 2 points here. Number one, the Yechid of Gedusha is connected to Yochid. And number two, the Yechid of Gedusha has only one want. What's that want? The Eibishter. And of course, whatever the Eibishter wants. And even though is it not true? It's true in fact that the Madreg of Yechid divided up into many different wills. Because was the pasuk says, Hashem have one request. What's my one request? Shift to Hashem, to sit in Hashem's house. Lachas b'nei Hashem gave me to see the pleasantness of Elokus and so forth and so on. So you start off by saying achas, and then that achas becomes many different things. The Tayag mitzvahs. I think that's pshat here. It may be true that all of these wants start from achas. But there are any specific wills that radiate from the achas, such as Shabbos and kosher and tefillin and mezuzah and so forth. So the kasha is the will of Yechida one or is the will of Yechida many? So he answers that the truth is externally you want many different things. Here you want Kazayis of Shmura. Here you want Eseg Muhudir. Here you want Alachat Chiladik Megillah, and so on. And here it's one want. They're really one want, which is the concept of Achas Shalti. So it expresses itself in many things, but those many things are not divisions of the want. They're expressions of it. What the Neshama really wants is the Eibishter, and the Eibishter is one. And he explains, the Alter Rebbe would say during his Dvekas, this is of course the Hayom of Yud Ches Kislev, the last day of the Chassidish year. And it sources from the Sefer Derech V'Tesecha, Sheidish Mitzvah Tefillah, which talks about Krishma and Tefillah. This is a Krishma meditation. What do I have in the heaven? And besides, for you I desire nothing on the earth. So Alter Rebbe used to say, and he would translate in Yiddish. And of course, you all know that the Friedrich Rebbe writes, some Tzedek writes. This is what the Alter Rebbe would say in his Dvekas. So the Rebbe notes in the Maim of Yata Tetzava that the Lashon V'kach Haya Nishma is Nishma Tomid. Alter Rebbe didn't say it once, he said it many times. When he was in the Dvekas, this is what he would say. Ich will sehr Gornis, I desire nothing. Ich will nicht dein Gan Eden, I don't desire Gan Eden. Ich will nicht den Elam Haba B'chol, I don't even want Elam Haba. Ich will me nitas dich allein, I desire you and you alone. And there's a diuk here. Gan Eden is Giluyim. Elam Haba is L'cheira Atzmus. The Alter Rebbe doesn't, you cannot buy the Alter Rebbe with anything short of Atzmus. Like the other moment that we had, Pikeach Echad, who says, Anon Yisiv Malka, Atzmus Amus. Nothing else. I want the Eibishter. In the Tafresh Lamed Vav from the Rebbe Marash, it was the year that Rebbe Rashab got married. And the Rebbe Rashab got married in Elul. The Rebbe Marash traveled a distance and then he went back to Lubavitch. He spent the Sheva Brachas in Lubavitch. He had to go to the wedding for health reasons. But he stopped in a train station. It was a shtickle fabreng. And it's one of the few hanochas of a sicha from the Rebbe Marash. The Fabrengenischen of the first four Chabad Rebbes are not recorded, except by the Friedrich Rebbe from what he heard from Chassidim. The Rebbe Rashab Sichas are recorded, the Friedrich Rebbe Sichas are recorded even more, and the Rebbe Sichas are perhaps more than the Maimonim. But by the Rebbe Marash, we have no original transcripts of things that he said at the time. This we have. And he's sitting in a train station. If I'm not mistaken, there were no benches. So one chassid got on his hands and knees, and the Rebbe Marash sat on him. Another chassid got his hands on knees, and the chassid, the Rebbe Rashab, sat on him. And the Rebbe Marash spoke. And he said, Ich will alles avegem. You should look it up. I'll give everything away. It says, Ich will afila avegem mein hiskashus zum Taten. I'm even prepared to give away my bond to my father, except my relationship with the Eibishter. It's very interesting. It's flamfire. It's the same word as this. It's the same word as this. So Yechida is singular. It's a singularity. It's connected to the single, Ta Hashem, with a capital S, and expresses itself in a want that's singular. Now, the fact that this want has many details, again, we're not dividing the want. Each one of the aspects that this Yechida wants is the full urgency of the Yechida. Says the Rebbe, I'm about 10 lines from the bottom of page 16. This notion of the Alter Rebbe saying, I want the Eibishter, and I want nothing else, not even I need Nelam Haba, is a will, which comes from the level of the Neshama, which is called Etzem. The level, as I translate over, is the level of the Neshama which exists in relationship with itself and with its creator, which is above all the faculties. And the Rebbe says, it's even higher than Tainuk. Now, why is this a problem? Because it says in Sefer Yetzirah, Ein L'mayla Mayenik. There's nothing above Tainuk. And he's going to bring down the Samach Vov, and he's going to say, he's going to quote the Samach Vov different than the Samach Vov says. If you've learned Samach Vov, there's two Maimonim, whatever it is, Lech Lecha Vayera. They have a big arichs by Tainuk and Ratzon. And the Rebbe brings sometimes Ratzon is Pnimi and Tainuk is Chitzeni, sometimes Tainuk is Pnimi, Ratzon is Chitzeni. And he pilpels back and forth. But what's the maskana? The maskana is Tainuk is always before Ratzon. Tainuk is always before Ratzon. But if you have a Ratzon on the highest level, that Tainuk is behelim, built in murkev or built in murgish klal. So it's not the pshat that there's no Tainuk before the Ratzon, there's no Tainuk that can be margish before the Ratzon. Here the Rebbe seems to say that the Ratzon is even higher than Keichat Tainuk. To me it's a stira. And I'm pointing it out because it's a tzarach bir and a tzarach ir. It deserves attention. Okay, it is known shebepnimi it's a koiches, and the inner aspect of the koiches. Look at footnote 23 is mitzayim to the samach vov. In will is even higher than pleasure. And again, if you look in the samach vov itself, it's not so simple what the Rebbe is saying. What it should say is the revealed will is stronger than the revealed pleasure. Because you can reveal the Atzmos HaRatzon, and you can't reveal Atzmos HaTainuk, because Tainuk is the Tnu of Aliyah, and Ratzon is the Tnu of Hamshach and Gilui. But this is what the Rebbe says, the Ratzon is stronger than Tainuk. Okay. As we know that then the inner faculties also will is stronger than anything else. That's why the fact is, that such things, things which give a person no pleasure whatsoever, they can actually cause the person the opposite of pleasure. Nevertheless, if it's conceivable that a person should want them by days a year for shouldn't get pleasure. You can will yourself into enjoying something you don't enjoy. That's the power of will. Now again, in the Samach Vov, the way I remember it, he doesn't say this, that you can will yourself into enjoying something you don't will. He brings something called Das Hanelam. The Das Hanelam can create a will where no will exists, can create a pleasure where no pleasure exists. But here the Rebbe says, Beferish, you can will yourself into having pleasure from something. Which I suppose you could say is another tzarech biur. Nevertheless, it's possible for a person to want them to the extent that he should have pleasure from them. On the other side, there may be things which give a person a lot of pleasure. For example, the different levels of Gan Eden, which are true pleasures. In the spiritual world, still, it's conceivable. Alter Rebbe did not want Gan Eden. He knew, the Rebbe said once in a Sikha, the Alter Rebbe had gewusst und es gewen Atzilus. The Alter Rebbe is gewusst und es gewen ein Seif shel Amayla Atzilus. He knew exactly what he was saying no to. And he said, Vim Chalei Chafatzti. Says the Rebbe, things that should provide pleasure, like it's conceivable, he shouldn't desire them, only the Eibush. So the power of will can create pleasure, the power of will can destroy pleasure, because will is stronger than anything else. Behind all the reason is because this will come from the etzem of the neshama. Which is above all the faculties. Gam, even mikeach ataynu, from the power of pleasure and delight. V'uratz and poshut, it's a plain will. V'atzmi, and it's a will that exists only in the context of self. Nothing else but self determines this will. Shemitah the etzem, which has to do with the neshama on the level that exists in relationship with itself. V'hainu, this means shemitah etzem and neshama, because the person's neshama has an etzem, has a center, which is self. Yesh le'ratzon atzmi, a person can have a will, which is on a level of atzmus. Beha atzmus and atzmus, and the Rebbe concludes again, v'uratzon echad b'vad, only one will. So I suppose you could say that there's 2 points. Again, number one, that this will of Yechid is connected to Yachid, and number two, that it's singular, that it's one. And of course, then the Rebbe explains that this will can change Tainuk. Says the Rebbe, the same is true in the Nefesh HaBahamis. Well, not the same. The Nefesh HaBahamis also has such a will which is called Makfinim Michdasi, above reason, which creates a want for Yoram Behemiyim on a level of Akshonis to the point of Mesiras Nefesh. However, they're not the same for 2 reasons. Number one, the Yechid of Klipa, you can't say Yechid al Yachtach, it's not connected to Yachid for obvious reasons. And number two, it's plural. But we just discussed about Yechid, it could be true of the Neshama. Because the Neshama comes from Tikkun, which is the world of oneness, and therefore the Neshama, which comes from oneness, is axiomatically, it's fundamentally one. Mashcheini as opposed to the animal soul, which comes from Teo. So we know from Kabbalah from many places, the concept of Teo is divided branches. Although it's true that in the Nefesh HaBahamis there can be a will which is so urgent that it's altogether above reason, that we call Kfira Michidasi. It's not as powerful, because it's not as single-minded as the will of the godly soul. As the Gemara says, and here he quotes the Gemara, which is normally quoted to show that there's no Yechida in Klipa. Bua, Bebua, the Bebua lays lahu, a shadow of a shadow she doesn't have. He's talking about a person who falls into a boyer. And he says, Ksev get li ishti. And then he dies. So the shaila is, did you hear his voice, or did you hear a kelavora, a shadow? And then the Gemara asks the kasha, maybe it was a shed. Maybe it was inside the boy, a spirit, a ruach, a ghost, and the ghost said, "Ksev get li ishti." So the Gemara answers, because you could see the shadow, and ghosts don't have any shadow. Frag the Gemara, ghosts do have a shadow. And to the Gemara, bua islu, bua de bua leslu, a secondary shadow they don't have. So a man is in a pit, and you can't see him clearly, but you can see his secondary shadow, so you know that it's not a shed. And he says, "Ksev get li ishti," you write the get. Kiswat nu get li ishti, you write the get before he dies. No, so this is a funny Gemara. I remember learning it as a child. It's a really strange Gemara. Shaded, you can see their shadow. Chassidus explains that it's talking about the person. And the shed means the person that's irrational. And the shaila is, maybe it's coming from the Nefesh HaBahamis, it's not coming from the Nefesh HaLakis. And the Gemara answers, if it comes from Bua, from the first Makif, then it came maybe from the Nefesh HaLakis, maybe from the Nefesh HaBahamis. If it's coming from Babua de Babua, then there's no klipa. Yechida has no klipa. That's how it's explained in many Maimorim. Here he's saying that there is a Yechida of klipa, but it's still not the same. And he quotes the same Gemara to make a different point. That even though there's a Yechida, it's missing the same Taikif. Which is why this shtikela seems to indicate what I said to you. One of my 2 ways of explaining this Maimir is to say that when he talks about Yechida, he really means Chaya, because of this Gemara. But let's go on. The divine soul is only one want. The animal soul has many wants. Sometimes you want this, and sometimes you want that, and often they're in conflict. Why? Sometimes from chesed, sometimes from gevura. Because the Nefesh HaBahamis is disparate. The Neshama doesn't have a unity. And the animal soul as a whole wants physical things. That the world of physicality is a world of distinctness, of separateness. Which is why that's why the power of the animal soul, in other words, the will of the animal soul, which is higher than reason, is called kfidim. Kfidim is lashon rabim, because there's many kfidim, right? Kfidim could mean, I'm thinking now, I tell you before kfidim means kfida, but kfidim mean young lions. Yeah, there's more than one. There's many. Because Klipa has many Ritzenis. And they offset each other. They take away from one another. It's not like when the Yechid of Klippa wants one taiva, and then Yechid of Klippa wants a different taiva. The whole Yechid wants both. There's a part of Yechid that's leaning here, and a part of the Yechid that's leaning over there. Nevertheless, given but at the same time, we're still arguing that there's a concept of Yechid and Klippa because there's such a thing as will, which is higher than reason. Which is why we say, first of all, fundamentally, that just like there's Yechid of Kedusha, there's also Yechid of Klippa. And more importantly, we say, Efsher, it's possible that the Yechid of Kedusha could be covered over by the Yechid Lomazah, even though in so many Marim it says the Chaya could be covered over by the Chaya. But Yechid can't be covered over because there's no Zela Yumazed. This Maimer says that the will of Klippa can be strong enough to cover over the Yechid of Nefesh Elokis. Which is why a person speaks about being protected from falling into the trap of the Klippa Yechida, which is multiple, which is diverse. It says that Alpha became still you can't compare the Lebchinas Yechida of the Nefesh Elokis, which is called Kfidim Loshen Rabenstam. So on the one hand, the Rebbe wants to say this Yechid and Kedush and Yechid and Liyomazeh, and on the other hand, the Rebbe wants us to say that they're not the same at all. And that's the difference between Mashcheini and Acharecha Nerutza, you understand? When you me'ated only the Yechid of Nefesh Elokis, it's Mashcheini Loshen Yochid. When you me'ated the Yechid of the Nefesh HaBahamis, Acharecha Nerutza. But Nerutza doesn't mean Nefesh Elokis, Nefesh HaBahamis. It means the Nefesh HaBahamis, many wills. Because the nature of the Nefesh HaBahamis Yechid that has many wants. Vezehu, and this is the pshat in the pasuk. Mashcheini Acharecha Nerutza. Nefesh Elokis, you're talking about the godly soul, Mashcheini Loshen Yochid. Because Nefesh Elokis has leiv echad la'ov shvashamayim, one want. Because all of the wills of the divine shall offer achtos. Mashenkin ba'aveda the sfira sa'im, and we talk about the service of sfira sa'im. Shenyano bir ramid the Nefesh HaBahamis, which is about bringing clarity to the animal soul. So we will run Loshen Rabbim. And again, I want to make it clear. In the previous Maimon Narutza meant us, Nefesh Elokis, Nefesh HaBahamis. Over here, Narutza means the Nefesh HaBahamis, many wills. It's a very different insight. It's a much Edeler insight. The Nefesh HaBahamis from his pride, the Nefesh must come from Klippa. And the nature of Klippa is diversity. Of course, you all know the word. That there's a word for the middle Rebbe. That when a chassid has a problem and he talks to another chassid, Hashem, it's quote, Zwei Nefesh Elokis of ein Nefesh HaBahamis, it's two divine souls against one animal soul. So the Welt fragt Akashe, if you go and talk to your friend, so you have two godly souls, two divine souls, your divine soul and the divine soul of your chaver, against one animal soul. I don't understand. If you're getting your friend involved, he also has an animal soul. So when you get your friend involved, it's your godly soul against and his godly soul, but it should also be your animal soul and his animal soul. So the Teres Poshta Zachetz Halach and Gemara, Ein Adam Chaytev Alilei. The Nefesh HaBahamis doesn't care about your behavior. And the Nefesh Elokis cares about somebody else's Nefesh Elokis because it's echad. So within a person himself, it's the same idea. Every inyan, the Nefesh Elokis is part of the Yechida. One. The Nefesh HaBahamis may have a takeoff of Yechida, but its nature is Lashon Rab. So when you're reading the pasuk Acharecha Narutza, there's a difference between how we're reading it now and how I read it in the previous Maimer. In the previous Maimer Acharecha Narutza, we will run Nefesh Elokis and Nefesh HaBahamis. In this Maimer Acharecha Narutza means the multiple wills of the Nefesh HaBahamis. So the Rebbe presented us with 2 points. Point number 1 is that there's a Yechid and Kedusha and Yechid and Klippa. And point number and they can interface. The Yechid of Klippa can be Mailim, can hide and challenge Yechid of Kedusha. And point number 2, quote, even though, end quote, they're quite different from one another. How does it tie into us? That in the previous Maimer, Mashcheini, Acharecha Narutza, Haviyani Melech Hadarav, Nagil, Nisach was talking about the lower levels of the Neshama, the Naran of the Neshama. And in this Maimer is talking about the Yechid. Okay, we'll stop. I could go on, but I'll stop. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Shem.